down, call it into my sponsor. I don't eat in between no matter what. And for today, abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. And as I said, my abstinent date was May 18th, 2006. That gives me 13 years of back-to-back abstinence. Thank you. And I had the privilege of celebrating that at the Connecticut retreat this weekend. And first, apologies to Karen and Lisa. They already heard me today at the earlier morning meeting on the West Coast. You know, being at that retreat was just so recharging and refilling, and I'll get to that a little bit later on. I want to start out with some of my pictures. I was going to get fancy, but I don't have all of these on my computer. So, and Grania, I hope this doesn't really mess up the video, but that's me in 1997 at a farm with my daughter, my oldest daughter, who's now 23. And I can remember sitting in those jeans and remembering the button digging and everything digging into my stomach, and taking off the pants later and having the imprint of the inside of the pants on. This is me at Yankee Stadium on August of 2001. It was the old Yankee Stadium, and they were metal seats, and I remember the metal seats just digging into my hips and being so uncomfortable. This is me and my son, who is a twin, and him and his sister just turned 16, but that was me in May of 2003. And this is where I start my story, because I was 36 years old. I had just given birth to these two and was just feeling utterly defeated, you know, just miserable. You know, yet again, having to go to the store to buy new clothes for the summer, because the clothes I had, you know, in the winter and the last summer were either worn in the thighs or stained in the shirt, because I had picked up my mother's habit of just somehow dribbling on my shirt and staining my shirt. And I was just being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I had thought about doing Weight Watchers again, looked into Take Off Pounds Sensibly, and I had decided on Weight Watchers, and they were just coming online at that moment, at that time. And I think I spent $150 to get started again online, thinking, oh, this is great, I can log in, try, you know, and I logged in once and I never logged in again. And I was just so tired of fighting the food. I had resigned myself to be a happy fat person because I could not figure it out. I just wanted to eat and be thin. And I was either planning a diet, breaking a diet, starting again on Monday. Oh, I had a hard day. Let me just go get this to make myself feel better. All I wanted to do coming home from work with a little 2-year-old was to just, you know, cook dinner, and then after that clean up, put her to bed, and then dive right back into the cabinets. I would stand in front of the refrigerator and just look, like, what is good? Like what will hit the spot? And that's kind of what my journey is like. It's like, once I ingested, and I didn't have a lot of this vocabulary when I came in, but today I know ingesting the foods we avoid on the back of that gray sheet, or in that back panel of the gray sheet, you know, sets up a physical craving. I didn't understand that back then. So I couldn't figure out why I couldn't have one of something. You know, I had a friend that could keep the brown sweet stuff on her table and for months let it sit there. You know, for me, that bag would be gone in a day and a half, maybe a day. You know, Halloween was my high holy day. And you know, it was always searching for that one bite, because that's all I wanted. I just wanted that one bite that would just then silence my head and not have to think about food. And then I would be thin, and I can go on my merry way, eat anything I wanted, and be thin. So, like I said, I had resigned myself to be a happy fat person, and you know, I tried every diet. You know, I remember dieting with my mother. I remember, you know, in that picture, I don't remember getting on the scale, but in this picture with my son, I was probably close to 265. You know, in the summers working, I'd have to, you know, put the stockings on, the nylons on, And then invariably they would rip, my thighs would rip together, and I would have to then come home and put zinc oxide on them just to get them to heal and stop rubbing together. So I had tried dieting with my mother. She had an issue with her food. My dad had an issue. You know, and that's what we struggled with pretty much our whole lives. I had some success being thin, but, you know, in my head, I was still fat. You know, in high school, I was down to a size 9, probably eating 800 calories a day. So kind of fast forward, that August, you know, I'm like, I just gave up. You know, I threw the white flag, and I'm just going to be, it is what it is. I've tried everything else. Obviously can't do Weight Watchers. And lo and behold, so my husband has a GreySheeter in his family, and she had said that there was a meeting starting 10 minutes from my house, and she would meet me there. So I still don't know how I said yes. I can only attribute it to my higher power and the grace of my higher power that I got there. And it was the first time I'd gone to a meeting. It was the first time, a man no less qualified, that it was the first time I had heard others doing and feeling the same way I did about food. But yet I walked in there scared to death, full of fear. I had the disease of perfectionism. I just wanted to take it, shop it to all my doctors because I knew it all. Wanted to take it, shop it to all my doctors just because I'm like, how could you not have carbs? Like, how could you not have carbs? Took it to all my doctors. They said it's fine, blah, blah. So I played with it for 2 years. Called in my food, put the white stuff in my coffee, would go to the coffee shop and get the sweet stuff and everything and manipulate. Because I couldn't get my head around the fact that I was a compulsive overeater. Like, I knew I had a problem, but I'm like, I can't be that bad. At 260 plus, I can't be that bad. That's just the crazy thinking in my head. And I also couldn't get the day-to-time concept. I walked into these rooms thinking I had no 12-step experience. I walked into these rooms thinking that I had to do it perfectly. I had to do the steps immediately, you know, that I had to do this for the rest of my life. So I played around with it for a couple of years. And that last binge I had 13 years ago was to a fast food restaurant, pulled across the street to a shopping center, pulled around the back, and just proceeded just to eat like an animal out of the bag. Doing the old behavior of just driving out, rolling down the windows, throwing the bag out to get the smell out of my car so my family didn't know. And I said to myself, well, what are you doing? Like, I'd had some success in losing the weight, but I was still crazy in the head. I still had the food committee in my head, and that's the gift of the gray sheet today. I don't have bags, boxes, cabinets, commercials talking to me that, oh yeah, one bite would be good, or, oh, let me just taste this. And I got honest with my sponsor. And, you know, it's just, from the age of 13 until 36 when I came in, I had prayed to God just to give me the willpower to lose weight, because I thought it was all about willpower, that it was a moral issue, that there was something wrong with me, that I just couldn't have one of something. And today, I am so grateful that I don't need willpower, that I understand today that when I put those foods in my body, that it sets up a physical craving. And there is alcoholism on both sides of my family. My father's mother was very large, probably over 350 pounds. So yeah, there is something inside me physiologically, can't say that word, that sets up that physical craving. So I've weighed and measured for these last 13 years through so many, what I say now, in looking back over these last 9 months, which I'll get to in a second, explain the tears, which I'm going to try not to cry because I don't want this on the YouTube video. I'm trying not to cry so hard. You know, what I call like little minor no matter what's. Thanks, Peggy. You know, kids tantrums, you know, raising kids, you know, kid surgeries, you know, medical procedures for me, medical procedures for my kids, you know, family events, travel. You know, my kids play soccer. I've weighed and measured on soccer fields more times than I can count. I'll be doing it again this weekend. I go to meetings. I go to meetings to hear the message of why I ate and how to do this abstinently, how to do the Gray Sheet abstinently, how to do life abstinently. I've done AWOLs, which teach me how to do life. You know, I am an only child, and, you know, I have an inner 2-year-old, and that inner 2-year-old likes to rear her ugly head. And so, you know, the Gray Sheet gives me boundaries around the food. The 12 steps give me boundaries around life and show me how to do life. And, you know, going to meetings is a key part of it. And these Zoom meetings are fabulous. The face-to-face meetings, you know, my home group in Westport, Connecticut is just fabulous. And like I said, I go to hear the message. I make my 3 phone calls. There's nothing in my life that I can go through that I can't pick up the phone in 1 or 2 phone calls, maybe 3, to get in touch with another GreySheeter that's gone through the exact same thing. And that to me is important, is to build a foundation, to get connected to the fellowship, because my disease is a disease of isolation. I'm a natural introvert. You know, I need the time, I need the, you know, the alone time. But I can't tell you how much I leaned on this fellowship the last 9 months. It started last July. We had gotten word that my daughter's old high school boyfriend died suddenly at 21. I knew the father, I knew the family, I kept in touch, I'd actually worked with him and everything, so that was just horrible as a parent. I mean, you know, the 6 degrees of separation thing. And then 2 weeks later, my dad calls and he told me he was diagnosed with cancer, liver cancer, an aggressive form of liver cancer. And that started the saga of surgeries, 4 hospitalizations, radiation treatment. Mind you, he lived an hour and a half away from me. And I was managing 2 households. Back up in my car, I overtook his refrigerator when I got to his apartment. To have the clarity and the strength to be an advocate for him, I can only attribute it to my abstinence. You know, planning, preparing, protecting, it's having food in the refrigerator at night. And sure enough, I had to rush into the emergency room, which led to the 2nd hospitalization. And through the radiation and, you know, through weeks of being up there, being his caretaker and balancing working remotely. And then ultimately, he chose not to do chemo, and he ultimately passed away March 2nd of this year. Sucked. It truly sucked. But the food, like, not once did the food call to me at all. So that was March 2nd, and then April 2nd, I got laid off from that job after 31 years. I'm like, are you kidding me? But, you know, there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of stuff going on. I was no longer happy there. There was no more opportunity for me there. And I truly believe that higher power puts me in places where I need to be. Thanks. I see that. Puts me in the place where I need to be at the time I need to be in. Not my will, you know. And so for the last 2 months, I've just been kind of in a semi-retirement kind of thing, an unwilling semi-retirement. But it's definitely purposeful and necessary, and higher power has a plan. But like I said, to me, like, during all that time, not once did I feel the food calling. Yeah, was it a pain to do it once in a while? Yeah. Did I had a couple? Yeah, but you know what? Weighing and measuring far outweighs bringing the beast out. And that is the bottom line for me. I do not have the food committee in my head. I don't have to think about my food anymore, other than planning it, preparing it, writing it down, calling it into my sponsor on time. And once I do that, I'm free to do, excuse me, I'm free to do other things. And, you know, I had just shared on the GreyNet, I put something out there that, you know, it also reminds me that, you know, going through this huge these 2 huge no matter what's, 3 huge no matter what's, you know, I need to be extra vigilant now, because I've heard in the rooms, and this is another reason why I go to meetings, you know, it's just after the no matter what's, I'm coming down off the adrenaline. I'm coming down off the always being on and on call, and, you know, I can let things slip. You know, the disease is ready to pounce at any moment. And, you know, I continue to weigh and measure my food. You know, we went out last night for dinner. I got back from the retreat, and I said to my family, I'm like, I really don't feel like I'll take stuff to go. Like, I don't really want to weigh and measure in a restaurant. Thanks, Peggy, I'll wrap up. And that's kind of the lesson I got from the retreat this weekend, that, you know, it's about radical self-care. And that's the message I got this weekend. And, you know, my sponsor says, all I have to do is weigh and measure today. All I got to do is weigh and measure my food. And it's a good day. So with that, I pass. Thank you for listening. And I don't eat no matter what.